Good evening. The view from here is terrific. It is so nice to see this house filled with so many supporters of this community, and thank you all very, very much for attending. Good evening and welcome to Building Our Second Century. I'm David Rocker, and it has been a pleasure for me and my wife Marion to co-chair this evening's event with Julie and Matt Kaplan and Gail and Larry Wieseneck. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here at this very busy time. It is your generosity and commitment which sustains our community and makes an impact on the life of so many people. Our grandparents emigrated from Europe, running from persecution and mistreatment. They came to the United States seeking a better life for their families. They worked hard so that the next generation could move ahead of them. Our parents followed and gave up much with the same objective. This was their legacy to us. We here in Greater MetroWest are the beneficiaries of these efforts. We feel an obligation to carry on that tradition and to honor the sacrifices they made that has enabled us to enjoy the life we do. So we feel it is incumbent on us to leave a legacy for future generations. Even though we are now residents of Florida for 20 years, we feel a great love for Greater MetroWest, where we raised our children and made so many wonderful friends. We are committed to sharing our good fortune with this community. This is something like thinking of supporting one's college, even though one is no longer attending it, because we recognize the important role it played in our lives. As a result, we have substantially added to our prior Lester commitment through Centennial, and have created support for the Rocker Family Jewish Camp Scholarship Program, which is near and dear to our hearts. Thank you.
Good evening, but actually I mean this is a great evening for us to be together for the first time in a very long time and for a celebration. I thank you for coming. It's very refreshing to be in a room with so many like-minded members of our community. I hope you all had a chance to see the honor rolls in the cocktail reception area. It is wonderful to see so many donors stepping up to secure the future of our wonderful community. We are also thrilled that so many members of our next gen community are here, continuing the vital work of our parents and grandparents. Greater MetroWest has been a wonderful community to live and to raise our two sons. While both Daniel and Joshua live in New York, they recognize the importance of the Centennial Campaign and have made individual donations to it. As I look around the audience, I see many dear friends who seem more like mishpacha. Our connections through common goals have been strong and lasting. We grew up, we grew older, understanding that the journey is ongoing and that the torch would hopefully be passed on. Obviously, it has. At this time, I'd like to recognize our lay leaders and professional staff who are dedicated individuals. David Saginaw, Jewish Federation President. Please try to sit on your hands because I have a long list here. Okay. At the end. Okay. Michael Goldberg, Jewish Federation incoming President. Dov Ben Shimon, Executive Vice President and CEO. Steve Levy, President of the Jewish Community Foundation. Maxine Mernick, President-elect of the Jewish Community Foundation, Kim Hirsch, Executive Director of the Foundation, Michal Werner, Associate Executive Director of the Foundation, Michelle Landau, UJA Campaign Chair, Rebecca Pollack, Vice President of Development, Deborah Jacob, Women's Philanthropy President, and Diane Besk, Director of Women's Philanthropy. Now you can applaud. We're blessed to have you all in our community. At this time, my respect and admiration for the past and present leaders of our Federation and Foundation is constant. Guided by their wisdom and their inspiring words, we are all here tonight celebrating our 100th anniversary. Each of us has played a supporting role in creating this remarkable community milestone. Mazel tov to all of us, and may our community and world Jewry go from strength to strength. At this time, I ask that you silence your cell phones. I have the pleasure of inviting Zev Sherrill and Rebecca Gold to lead us in the national anthem and Hatikva. Thank you.
Stay with us.
Okay, don't say. You're going first.
Oh, I'm going first. Okay. You want to? Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Kol od balevav penima nefesh Yehudi homiya ufate mizrach kadima ayin letzion Sophia od lovda tikvatenu hatikva bat shnot alpayim liot amechofshi be'artzenu Eretz Zion v'Yerushalayim liot amechofshi be'artzenu Eretz Zion
Thank you, Zev and Rebecca, for sharing your beautiful voices with us tonight. I'm going to start off my remarks by just going a little off script, and I would like to just thank the professionals who are here tonight one more time. None of this would have happened without them, certainly not just the lay leaders, but I thought it was important to do that. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to the room where it happens. I'm Steve Levy, and it's my privilege and honor to serve as president of the Jewish Community Foundation of Greater MetroWest, the JCF. In 1949, a group of visionary philanthropists established the JCF, the legacy and endowment arm of the Jewish Federation of Greater MetroWest, New Jersey, because they understood that the well-being of our community depended upon planning for and investing in our future. Today, JCF is one of the largest community foundations in New Jersey and among the top 10 Jewish community foundations in North America. In addition to managing the assets of our federation and many Jewish agencies, local, national, and international, we also have an extensive donor-advised fund program and work closely with many families on multi-generational Jewish philanthropy. We are proud that back in the early 1990s, our community led the nation with a pioneering and visionary idea, creating endowments to support the future of the UJA annual campaign. These gifts, these commitments, these statements of love and support for this community and for the Jewish people enabled donors' philanthropy to live on in their names each and every year forever. The William and Betty Lester and the Lion and Judah Endowment Societies were created, recognizing donors leaving legacy gifts of $100,000 or more to endowments to support the future of the UJA. Today, because of the first generation of generous Lester and Lowe's members, our JCF houses more than $60 million of these perpetual annual campaign endowments, or PACE. This year, this is the kicker, those endowments are providing $3 million in earnings to our UJA annual campaign, the single largest gift. Now in 2023, these critical dollars, set aside decades ago in estate plans of generous donors who came before us, impact countless lives in every part of our Jewish community, in Israel, and around the world every minute and hour of every day. Today, we stand at an historic moment for our community. In just a few weeks, some 500 of us will be heading to Israel for our Centennial mission. This is the launch of a full year of celebration and community building in honor of our Federation's 100th anniversary. We are indebted to Jane Wilf, our Centennial Chair, for leading us through this extraordinary chapter in our community's history. The incredible Federation community we have today, one of the largest and most vibrant in all of North America, began with a meeting in Newark in November 1923 of the Conference of Jewish Charities. Later, we became the Jewish Federation of Metropolitan New Jersey, and through mergers with Morris, Sussex, and Central New Jersey Federations, we have become today's Jewish Federation of Greater MetroWest. In honor of this historic milestone, we have launched the Centennial Campaign, the largest in our history, with a goal of raising $250 million. Yes, that's $250 million. Not sure which one sounds bigger, but there are a lot. These funds will be used to enhance our community today and secure our second century and beyond. To date, we have raised more than $170 million in commitments about 70% of the way to our goal. Through this Centennial Campaign, we are now engaged in the largest PACE effort since the early 1990s to build these endowments to support the future of UJA, the lifeblood of our Jewish community, so that 10 or 20 years from now, the $3 million in earnings will be 4 or 5 or even 6 million each and every year for the UJA campaign. And there's more. Through the Centennial, donors are also creating endowments to support key areas of our federation, including Jewish Camp, PJ Library, our Rishonim program, our young Israeli ambassadors, missions to Israel, and more. Centennial donors are also making gifts to secure the future of their most valued partner agencies, such as JCCs, day schools, and synagogues. Through the Targeted Today segment of our Centennial Campaign, donors are investing in programs such as Leadership, the Holocaust Survivor Fund, Israel Advocacy, Community Security, and more, to elevate and enhance Jewish life today as we enter our second century. This is such a special moment in our history, and we wanted to make sure that everyone could take part. We have broadened the tent in two key ways. First, with the New Century Fund, which recognizes donors making legacy commitments of $10,000 to $99,000 to the future of UJA. This makes it possible for virtually anyone to become a Centennial donor. Also, through the 100 for 100 Centennial initiative, we are welcoming and giving special recognition to next-gen donors, those 50 and younger, for stepping up, I'm feeling very old, stepping up to make a Centennial gift at all levels, recognizing that prior generations built this community that they are benefiting from, and it is their obligation to step up and do the same to keep paying it forward. So I want to say thank you to the many donors here tonight who have already committed to the Centennial Campaign. We can see you wearing your pins, and if you don't have one, we'll get you one. Through your gifts and through the statement of commitment and care for our broad, beloved community, you and all of us are doing something that no one of us could do. We are, one gift at a time, literally and figuratively, building a strong and vibrant future Greater MetroWest for the next 100 years and beyond. In closing, I would like to share a quote from Pirkei Avot. Lo alecha hamalacha ligmor v'lo ata ben chorin levatel mimena. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. We hope that those who have not yet made a gift will consider doing so in this historic year. You can speak to me or any number of our Centennial leaders or professionals of JCF and the campaign. The upcoming 12 months will be filled with signature programs and events to celebrate our first 100 years with the entire Greater MetroWest community, beginning with our amazing mission to Israel next month. We hope you can join us at one or more of these upcoming celebrations. And now I would like to introduce our next vice chairs, Larry and Gail.
Good evening. I'm Larry Wiesneck, and together with my wife, Gail, we're honored to introduce our incredible speakers for today's discussion.
Our commitment to Jewish communal involvement began as kids in each of our family. Both sets of our parents were dedicated to serving as leaders in their respective synagogues and in other Jewish organizations in both Bergen and Essex County. Separately, they encouraged us to become involved in USY, which provided the setting for us to meet at a Purim dance some 40-ish years ago. And as they say, the rest is history. From the beginning of our marriage, we were determined to not only follow in our parents' footsteps, but to also support the broader Jewish communal organizations which ultimately brought us together. So when we moved to New Jersey, in addition to joining a synagogue, we got involved in Greater MetroWest's Young Leadership Division and developed close friendships with like-minded people who shared our Jewish values.
At that time, we quickly realized that there were so many ways for us and our peers to connect with the local, national, and global Jewish community through Federation. Whether it was a mini mission to one of our day schools, Jewish Family Services, Jesby House, or Daughters of Israel, we learned that MetroWest provides essential services for community members at all the different stages of their lives. Similarly, by traveling with Federation to Israel and Cuba, we witnessed firsthand the impact that our community has to Jews throughout the world. So like our parents and grandparents, we strive to set an example of volunteerism and commitment to the Jewish community that will inspire our children. By participating in the Centennial Campaign, we're creating a legacy of philanthropy to benefit Federation for future generations. We want to, quote unquote, pay it forward so that our local Jewish community remains strong well into the next century.
MetroWest is fortunate to have several inspirational lay leaders who motivate each of us to give of our time and resources to benefit the entire community. One of those exemplary leaders is our good friend, Mark Wilf, whose acts of tikkun olam are matched by few. Mark's parents, Joseph of blessed memory and Elizabeth, are his role models, and he honors their experience as Holocaust survivors by demonstrating a profound commitment to advocate for the needs of the Jewish people. The entire Wilf family has long played an active and significant role in both the former Central New Jersey Federation and Greater MetroWest. As part of their commitment to ensuring the vitality of our Federation for the next 100 years, the Wilf Family Foundation has made a leading gift to the Centennial Campaign. Mark's wife, Jane, an inspirational leader in her own right, is currently serving as the chair of MetroWest's historic 100th year celebration. The Wilf's commitment to ensure the welfare and strength of the Jewish community extends far beyond the borders of New Jersey on both a national and global level. Mark currently serves as the chairman of the board of the Jewish Agency for Israel, the world's largest Jewish nonprofit, whose top priorities are immigration and absorption, as well as strengthening the connection between Israel and the diaspora. He is the immediate past chair of the Jewish Federation of North America and has also held numerous Federation leadership positions, including, but not limited to, National Young Leadership Cabinet Co-Chair, National Campaign Chair, and Co-Chair of the National Holocaust Survivors Initiative. In addition to Mark's extensive philanthropic endeavors, he is a partner in Garden Homes, a real estate development firm, and the owner and president of the Minnesota Vikings. Mark, we are thrilled to have you moderate our discussion with Ambassador Oren this evening.
Ambassador Michael Oren has devoted his entire life to serving the Jewish people in the state of Israel. As a member of the Knesset and deputy minister in the Prime Minister's office, he interacted with foreign leaders and defended Israel in the media. Ambassador Oren spearheaded efforts to strengthen Israel-diaspora relations, develop the Golan Heights, support lone soldiers, and fight against BDS as chairman. As chairman of a classified subcommittee, he dealt with some of Israel's most sensitive security issues. For nearly 5 years, Ambassador Oren served as the Israeli ambassador to the United States. He was instrumental in obtaining U.S. defense aid, especially for the Iron Dome system and America's loan guarantees for Israel's economy. He also built bridges with diverse communities, wrote dozens of op-eds, and conducted hundreds of media interviews, fortifying the U.S.-Israel alliance. Raised right here in New Jersey and educated at Princeton and Columbia, Dr. Oren has been a visiting professor at Harvard, Yale, and Georgetown. His last 3 history books were all New York Times bestsellers. Ambassador Oren made Aliyah in the 1970s, served as a lone soldier in the paratroopers, and as an IDF spokesman, participating in several wars and reaching the rank of major. He acted as an emissary to Jewish refuseniks in the former Soviet Union and won 2 gold medals in the Maccabiah Games. Currently, Dr. Oren's writing a book about Israel's War of Independence. He has 3 children, 6 grandchildren, and lives with Tamara in Jaffa. Please join me in welcoming Ambassador Michael Oren and Mark Wilf.
for that nice introduction.
Wow.
Down there. That was very nice.
The least we can say is pronounce their last name right, right?
Well, it's really great to be together and to see all of you here today and to be in person together. And I'm going to reverse the order of our typical meetings. Good and welfare usually comes last, but we're going to start off with it. Ambassador, I know your son Noah is getting married next week right down the street, so mazel tov on that.
A nice Jewish girl.
Ambassador Oren, thank you so much for joining us here tonight, and I'm pleased to welcome you back home, literally home, on behalf of the Greater MetroWest community, and we're excited to hear more about you, your life, and your work, and of course, an update from Israel.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Jane. Thank you all, the leaders of the Federation, the Foundation, our co-chairs, Kim, Dov. A special shout out to a person who's played a very important role in my life, Judy Lieberman, wherever you are. I love you. You're out there, Judy. And to so many of you who have knew my parents, my father is the director of Beth Israel Hospital for 40 years, my mother, a teacher here in the community, and my synagogue, B'nai Shalom.
Well, let's start with your journey a little bit personal, and right down the street here a little bit in West Orange. Tell us a little bit about your background, your experience growing up in a conservative Jewish home in West Orange, and being involved in Zionist youth groups, and helping shape who you are today, including, of course, the move to Israel and ultimately to be ambassador. That journey, please.
Jersey boy. Yes. A totally Jersey boy. Grew up, went to Pleasantdale Elementary School, Mountain High School, which doesn't, Oliver Shalom, Mountain Shahab High School. And no one could be prouder. And I member of the conservative synagogue, but American conservatism of the 1960s, which was meant you drove to shul. We really didn't learn much anything about Talmud or Jewish holidays. Didn't really know what kashrut was at the time. And did my bar mitzvah in transliteration, in English letters. They never taught me how to read Hebrew. Fortunately, when I was 15, which was a transformative years for me, I went out, I decided that I was going to discover what it meant to be Jewish, and I found a wonderful Chabad rabbi named Shalom Gordon in Springfield, who sat down and taught me Gemara, and the tefillin I have to this day are the tefillin that he gave me. A wonderful rabbi, and I'm very much indebted to him. It was also that year that I discovered the state of Israel. I grew up in a neighborhood off of Laurel Avenue, for those who can actually say this here, Laurel Avenue. We're the only Jewish family in that community. My mother still lives there. It's still the only Jewish family in that community. Working class Sicilian community, and being the only Jewish kid in that neighborhood, I had to learn to fight with my fists, not always very successfully. And I'd come home very bloody. And my father, who many of you know was a World War II hero, had landed with his brother on Normandy Beach, fought all the way through the war. They had liberated a concentration camp, and they took pictures of the horrors that they saw there. I still hold these pictures in my cell phone if anyone really wants to see them afterward. I would come home all bloody, and he'd show me these pictures of the bodies, the skeletons, and say, you see that, son? That's why we need a strong state of Israel. And if you've just been called a Christ killer and you've got a bloody nose, that means a heck of a lot to you. It's a profound impact. The Six-Day War, which occurred right before my bar mitzvah, the feeling that we were going to witness a second Holocaust within one generation and no one was going to do anything, convinced me that we Jews had to take our own destiny into our own hands. So many milestones along the road. Starting at age 15, I went to Washington, D.C. with the Zionist youth movement, and I met Israel's ambassador to the United States, a gentleman by the name of Yitzhak Rabin. I shook his hand. I said, that's what I want to be when I grow up. No kidding. I'm 15. And at 15, I went off to kibbutz. And I was a terrible farmer. But I would work all year long. This is how crazy I was, Mark. I would work all year long at the Crestmont Country Club mowing grass, right? Raking sand traps. You should know, those of you who play golf, just what goes into raking a sand trap. And to work all year long to save enough money to go to Israel every summer and work for free on a kibbutz. And finally, I packed a backpack, literally backpack. I got on a plane and moved to Israel in the 1970s when Israel was the Wild West. I mean, really, there was nothing. To call home to my parents, you had to get onto a phone, would put in these little tokens, like hundreds of tokens. You put them in, you get maybe 5 minutes for $100 to say. There was nothing, even the falafel was bad. And to watch Israel transform the way it has. We had no relations with China back then, none with India, none with the Soviet bloc, none with Africa. A friendly relationship with the United States, but not a strategic alliance with the United States. Israel, a lower middle class country, our biggest export item was oranges. And to see it transform in my lifetime, to feel that I've had a role in that has been a source of inestimable pride and fulfillment for me. It's amazing. And I said earlier to some of the leaders of your community, though I've traveled far, 7,000 miles, and had many different experiences, that wherever I've gone, in serving Israel, whether it be in the Soviet Union, in the halls of the White House, in capitals around the world representing Israel, I always take with me the ideals, the devotion, and the commitment that I internalized through this community. Everything I've done in life reflects what I received here. And for that, I remain personally, and not just personally, although I'm not a representative of the state of Israel anymore, for the people in the state of Israel, all I can say to each and every one of you, Toda Rabah, thank you.
Beautifully said, and we have a lot to be proud of in this community, especially our connection to Israel, but you as a son of this community, we're especially proud as well. So let's move on to Israel and affairs in Israel, which of course you're deeply steeped in. Israel just turned 75, and an incredible milestone. We're all proud of being a part of building the state of Israel. What do you see as greatest accomplishments and greatest challenges, and maybe tie in to some of the recent protests and judicial reform as well?
You know, Mark, by any international criteria, Israel is not just a successful country. Israel is a super successful country. Our per capita GDP now exceeds that of Japan and Italy. We're closing in on Canada and Germany. We have one of the highest levels of longevity in the world. If you're an American male and want to live 8 years longer, come over to us. We are one of the happiest countries in the world. I tell my kids to stop complaining, because they're happy. We have seven of the world's leading universities. We have an army that's more than twice as big as the French and British armies combined. Get that? Believe that? We are one of maybe 5 countries in the entire world that has never known a second of non-democratic governance. And we're the only country on that list that's never known a second of peace. Think about that as an accomplishment. Extraordinary. We have a famed judicial system, a famed universal health care system that actually works, great infrastructure, and water that comes out of our tap is better than anything you get in a bottle. Isn't that incredible? Incredible. We have more Nobel Prize winners than we have gold medalists at the Olympics, and only a Jewish state would be proud of that, Guys are coming home, Mom, I got a gold medal, I got to go. Yeah, no, where's your Nobel Prize? Amazing, this country. Extraordinary. And yet, it is the only country in the world that I know of whose right to defend itself and right to exist is challenged, particularly on American campuses today. It is a country that faces not one but multiple existential threats, of which the Iranian threat is the most maybe tangible. But the question of our relationship with our future, of our Arab citizens, our fellow Arab citizens, our ultra-Orthodox citizens, our income gap, yes, we're very successful, but we have the deepest income gap, the widest between any country in the world outside of the United States, Mexico, and Chile. 1 million Israeli kids beneath the poverty line. No small amount. No small amount. Deep divisions, we're going to talk more about the divisions within Israeli society. All these threaten our future well-being. I got to plug this. This is my new book. It's called 2048, Israel, the Rejuvenated State. And it's a project I began with the Prime Minister several years ago to envision Israel on our 100th birthday. And by the way, it's in Hebrew and in Arabic, as well as in English. But I made a vow in writing this book that I wouldn't shy away from any issue, no matter how controversial. And I talked about what it means to have an ultra-Orthodox population, which is doubling every decade plus, so that in another 20, 30 years, you're going to have between 1/3 and 1/2 of all elementary school children in the state of Israel will be Haredi, will be ultra-Orthodox, and they're getting less than a second-grade education. That's a population that will not only be able to not defend the country, will not be able to sustain the country economically. And that's just one of the threats we face. We have to address them now, we have to acknowledge them now, and begin to deal with them now as we knew how to deal with them, because the Israel that I saw evolve over my time in Israel, it's been 45 years already, from that poor, lower middle class, isolated, besieged Israel that didn't have peace with Egypt, didn't have peace with Jordan, never mind the Abraham Accord countries. To see what we have accomplished in 45 years leads me to believe that we can overcome anything. Anything. But as with all these other accomplishments, we don't do it alone. We do it with you, we do it with diaspora communities throughout the world. We got the Jewish people, and we are extraordinary. We are truly extraordinary, and we can do it. Thank you.
So, well said. So you touched on it, some of the internal debate going on and incredible protests and so forth about the judicial reform piece. What is, in your view, the path forward? Where are we heading on this debate and conversation in Israel that we're all watching closely?
Well, we hope that under the aegis of our president, President Herzog, the 2 or 3 sides are reaching some type of compromise. This is not rocket science, friends. It is not. One of the chapters in my book that I wrote 3 years ago was on the need to reform the Supreme Court. And let me explain this as briefly as possible, because it's immensely complex, actually, but the solutions are easy. What's complex? Everyone here is a citizen of the United States of America? All right, guess what? You are very blessed. You have not 1 but 2 opportunities to influence the composition of your Supreme Court. You vote for the president and you vote for the Senate. In Israel, we have almost 0 influence in the composition of the Supreme Court. That is way in contrast to the United States, where the composition of the Supreme Court is a major electoral issue here. I know my family here votes for the president and the Senate on the future of the Supreme Court. In Israel, it's never an electoral issue because nobody asks us. Supreme Court judges are chosen by a panel of 9, and the majority of the 9 are either sitting jurists on the Supreme Court or other legal scholars. And that creates a situation where our Supreme Court judges are wonderful scholars, but they're human beings. And as human beings, when you choose your successor, naturally you're going to choose someone who agrees with you, not someone who disagrees with you. So in terms of its worldview, the Supreme Court is basically marching in place circa 1994. But the Knesset, which reflects public opinion, has moved precipitously rightward. So there's a distance in the worldview. And increasingly, the Supreme Court was turning down pieces of legislation passed by the Knesset, so that people in the Knesset were saying, hey, wait a minute, who elected you? We're the sovereigns. We were elected. And they were going to pass a law called the Override Law that said that 61 members of Knesset could override any rejection of a piece of legislation by the Supreme Court. Guess what? That means the end of a judicial review, which, to my mind, is the pillar of any democratic society in the world. And so when I wrote my chapter in the book about the need to reform the Supreme Court, I started from the assumption that we have to preserve judicial review, but we had to reform the way Supreme Court judges are chosen. We have to limit the scope of the Israeli Supreme Court because its scope is the widest of any Supreme Court in the world, and there were other great challenges there. But the solutions are not that difficult. We can select a different way of selecting our judges that greater reflects public opinion and make the Israeli people feel that they have a stake in their Supreme Court. We can limit the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. There's one big challenge, and that is the will and the maneuverability of our political leaders. Years ago, I learned from a great professor of Israeli politics, a former American named Asher Aryan. I asked him, what was the one law of Israeli politics I had to understand? It was like a Hillel-type question, you know? And he said, very simple. Israeli politicians will always prefer national to individual suicide. And some of these people in the negotiations, the heads of these parties will say, well, you know, maybe we'll just let this go on and see if it will bring down the government. Or people in the government will say, maybe we'll just go on and we will delegitimize the opposition. But it's causing tremendous damage. It's causing tremendous damage strategically, politically, and even economically to the state of Israel. And so I sincerely hope that these simple solutions can be found and that we can move on to addressing these other monumental and potentially existential challenges facing Israel's future.
Well, thank you for that segue, because the next challenging topic I want to talk about is monumental and challenging, and that's peace with neighbors, Israel's neighbors. We've not yet achieved that. What is your view on where we're going with that, particularly Iran? and just generally on the landscape in Israel's relations with its neighbors?
Well, let's define the word neighbors. I mentioned I moved to Israel. We didn't have peace with Egypt and Jordan. That was inconceivable back then, and now it's been, what, more than 4 decades? I had the privilege as an advisor to Yitzhak Rabin to be present at the signing ceremony of the Jordan-Israel peace agreement with Yasser Arafat and King Hussein and of course Bill Clinton at the time. Amazing. And so we take that for granted. Now we've had these 4 signatories to the Abraham Accords. And that was inconceivable back then too. Who thought we'd have relations with UAE, with Bahrain, with Morocco? Whoever thought that? And so we are well on the way to ending what we used to call the Arab-Israeli conflict. But of course, we still have 2 major conflicts. We have a conflict with the Palestinians, and we have a conflict with Iran and its proxies in the region. And with Iran, there are no prospects for peace. There are, in fact, rising prospects for conflict, and not just limited conflict, but potentially regional conflict. As Iran not walks but races toward nuclear military capabilities, that will be impossible for the State of Israel. Understand that if Iran has nuclear capabilities, our ability to defend ourselves against Hezbollah rockets, 150,000 of them, or 20,000 rockets in the hands of Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad in Gaza, we won't be able to do. We won't be able to defend ourselves because we'll have an Iranian nuclear weapon placed to our forehead. Think about that. And so as Iran moves to that weapon, Israel's going to have to make a fateful and historic choice. And that will be of fateful and historic dimensions for Israeli policymakers and for the people of Israel, because there's no front lines anymore. The front lines are downtown Tel Aviv, as we know. With the Palestinians, the situation is much more complex. I have been involved not only as an advisor to Rabin, but as an advisor to the Trump peace plan, and I participated in the last round of negotiations with the Palestinians. I represented Israel. And while I think that a 2-state solution would be ideal, it is totally unattainable. Unattainable for numerous reasons, not the least of which the Palestinians don't want it. Palestinians hold the world record for people who have returned down offers of a 2-state solution, starting in 1937, 1947, 2000, 2001, I go on and on. Usually turn it down with violence. And by the way, they have never subscribed to the American formula of 2 states for 2 peoples because they do not recognize us as a people. Never. So even the Jewish state, should they even create a 2-state solution, the Palestinians would never recognize the Jewish state as legitimate. Never. The immediate irredenta. And there's no leadership. Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinian Authority, is in the 17th year of his 4-year term. And frankly, in Israel right now, there's not a great feeling about it anyway. And I have much more to say about it. I can go on for hours. But I think that as long as we keep beating our heads on this 2-state solution idea, we will never seriously consider alternative solutions. And there are alternative solutions. There are federated solutions. There are trusteeships. There are condominiums. There's greater autonomy. There are many ways we can proceed. And the important thing, and I feel very passionate about this, the important way is to provide the Palestinians with a political horizon, to know that the current situation will not continue indefinitely, and to give Israelis a sense of security that whatever degree of autonomy plus or state minus the Palestinians achieve will not threaten us, because we will not be within rocket range. We will be within rifle range. I see Judea and Samaria out of my back window in Jaffa. It is not far away. I think there are many, many possibilities if we can be creative and flexible. With the Iran issue, we're going to have to be strong, and we're going to have to be united.
So let's switch now, Ambassador, to something that is very close to us, Israel-U.S. relations, and your role, of course, as an ambassador. What do you see the role of the American Jewish community in relation to Israeli political issues? How can we make best our opinions heard? And do our opinions carry much weight? And I think to segue into that, we're going 500 strong Greater MetroWest community members to Israel. When we see and connect with Israelis, what are they looking to hear from us? So just give us some of that thought on that relationship.
The American Jewish community, the strength, coherence of the American Jewish community, the vitality of the American Jewish community is a strategic national interest for the State of Israel. Strategic on the level of the fact that there are 26 Jewish members of Congress, there's a minion in the Senate, and American aid to Israel, but not just aid, it's diplomatic support, what I call the diplomatic Iron Dome that we receive from the United States in international forums such as the Security Council and the International Criminal Court in The Hague are essential for Israel's security. And we are a people. And it's not just a strategic interest, it's a moral imperative for the state of Israel, which defines ourselves. We define ourselves as the nation state of the Jewish people, which means every member of the Jewish people has a stake in our state, as we have a stake in you. And the great challenges here, Mark, is that not only among the American Jews, particularly young liberal American Jews, a feeling of alienation, disenfranchisement from the state of Israel. Among Israelis, a great number of Israelis, well, what do we care about the American Jews? They're living there, they don't pay taxes, they don't serve in their armies. I've heard people in Knesset saying this. I spent 2.5 years negotiating the Kotel arrangement. Hard negotiations, believe me, harder dealing with Reform and conservative rabbis than I was dealing with the Palestinians. And we achieved this historic arrangement just to have it rescinded by the Israeli government several years later. And I was the only member of the Israeli government to oppose the rescinding of it. And I listened to the Knesset, people saying, oh, American Jews, let them stay there, be happy. We don't need them that much. So the first goal, the first objective here is education. Educating young American Jews about the importance of Israel in their lives, certainly, but also educating Israelis. And here, Jane, this is why the mission is so crucial. To talk to Israelis, to remind them the importance of the American Jewish community, what the American Jewish community means for them. And I'll tell you something that I always say to American Jewish leaders. When you're talking to Israelis, do not talk American Jewish. Do not talk about pluralism and brotherhood and peopleism. People, talk about security. That's speaking Israeli. Say the American Jewish community helps assure that your children will sleep securely at night. Simple as that. That has a profound impact on Israelis. That's what they understand, security. Come, we're going to welcome you, you're going to have a fabulous time. Of course, a transformative time, it always is. But utilize that time to teach Israelis. Teach them in the language that they'll understand, which is, we are here, we are essential for your well-being, we are essential for your security and the future of your children. That's it. I left you all quiet on that one. That's really... Okay, gotcha. So but we'll reverse roles a little bit, if you don't mind. Now I'll put you on the hot seat. You recently came back from Ethiopia. I read that extraordinary review, the article that you wrote. We were talking earlier. I've been involved as a member of the Knesset Absorption and Aliyah Committee and the Ethiopian issue, and I know how complicated it is and potentially even explosive. Tell me about your visit to Ethiopia. Tell me about your observations and conclusions.
Well, it was a very powerful visit. Jane and I were with 40 federation leaders and media and social influencers. Michael and Terry Goldberg, Kim Hirsch from our community were there, and it was very powerful. There's still estimated 8,000 to 12,000 Ethiopians still trying to get to Israel. Everyone who's going, including the ones that you in the government decided to bring in, the 5,000 that was just allocated, just came in. We brought 111 Olim to Israel. The ones that are coming now have to be initiated from Israel. They have family members in Israel. And so to see on the tarmac a woman, a mother, who has not seen her son, roughly my age, for 41 years, and them embracing and hugging on that tarmac is something I know I will never forget. It was very powerful. And the reality is we're concluding this wave, like I said, 8,000 to 12,000, it's a very complex issue in terms of heritage and identity and the politics. But I think we, as a Jewish agency and a Jewish community, are urging the government to sit together, once again, committees, and to look at the issue and finally, once and for all, resolve it as a humanitarian issue one way or the other, because there's a lot of pain and emotion there. But it was a very powerful trip, and of course, we've brought 100,000 Ethiopians to Israel, and the number's now 170,000 in Israel. 70,000 have been born there. It's a powerful, powerful immigration, and that's what's built the state of Israel. The Jewish Agency, for instance, has brought in nearly 4 million people since the founding of the state into the state of Israel. So we need to make sure to keep Israel strong, and it was a very powerful trip.
That would be like the United States absorbing about 150 million people. And think about that as immigration. Isn't that extraordinary? So I've had the privilege of working with several prime ministers. I've had the privilege of working with several administrations on the White House. And I will tell you unequivocally, the hardest job on the planet is to be prime minister of the state of Israel. But there might be one job that's a little bit harder, and that's to be the chairman of the Jewish Agency. And why would you do that? And why would you take on such an onerous role? And what do you see as the greatest challenges facing you in that role?
Well, certainly I am the chair, the North American, that's the chair of the Board of Governors. Of course, my colleague and dear friend, Major General Doron Almog, is the executive chairman, and he's doing the day-to-day work and leading the Jewish Agency. But you're right, it's complicated. We're, of course, very proud. And Gail mentioned before about the agency and what it does. Of course, Aliyah, absorption, and rescue is primary, and building Israel society, taking care of vulnerable. But for me, as a parent and we with children in this community, what we care about is the continuity of our people and building the connection between Israel and diaspora in our own communities. I think we're all in this room tonight because we care, and of course we're here talking about the foundation and legacy. We care what kind of community we'll have for our children and grandchildren, and building that strong bond. I mean, we're going to be having in the next 3 weeks 1,600 shlichim coming to summer camps where our children, 100,000 Jewish children strong, are going to learn about Israel. We need to strengthen that. We're working with the government to double and even triple that. And vice versa, the trips. We've had 800,000 young people go on birthright. The Jewish Agency has a... The Jewish Agency, we're very proud of the Masad program. 160,000 young people have gone on a 6-week to 1-year program to Israel. That's very important to, I think, should be for all of us to make sure we keep supporting our primary overseas partner, the agency and the JDC, and make our living bridge between our communities stronger. So that's a big priority for us. Okay, I know we got a few more questions here, so let's bring this back to where we started, this wonderful community that we both grew up in. Our Centennial mission, as we've talked about, is a few weeks away, and we'll be launching the 100th anniversary of our community. What are your thoughts on this community turning 100 years old?
Wow, makes me feel young. I think it's a great testimony to what this community has stood for, some of the great challenges it faced. Again, speaking from my family history, my father was the director of Beth Israel Hospital for 40 years. And in the Newark riots of 1967, some of us are old enough to remember them, almost all the hospitals left Newark. But there was one hospital that decided to stay. And that was the Jewish hospital, with an entirely Jewish board decided to stay in Newark, where the Jews had moved out to this community, 10 years before, and to serve the African American community, and continues to do that to this day on Lyons Avenue. There's a big, Magen David in front of that hospital, and that, I know for me, was extremely important, dealing with the Black Caucus in Congress, and always, recalling that commitment of our community to the community of Newark was very important. I just have seen things, Mark. I'm actually jealous whenever I look at this community, because I mentioned before that I read my bar mitzvah in transliteration, but I go to synagogues now in this community, and the bar mitzvah and the banot mitzvah get up there and they read in beautiful Hebrew. There was no Solomon Schechter school here when I grew up. There was no Jewish schools. There was no JCC. I mentioned the JCC before. It was built when I was 14 years old. I missed that whole period. We didn't have anything. I went to YMCA camp. Went to church on Sundays, which my father insisted on calling Young Men's Hasidic Association. Almost convinced me, by the way. But we didn't have the infrastructure. And what you have built over the course of this century is extraordinary. And, as the Weisenecks, if I get that right, were saying before, that you are committed to future generations here, right? You think it's hard being ambassador? Imagine saying that name. That you are committed not just to your present. You're committed to your future, to your children and grandchildren. And what could be more admirable than that? I'm very, very proud to have come from this community and to still be a part of it.
So saying that, and of course, while you're no longer living here, thank God your mom is still doing well here.
Turning 95 this week.
God bless. Why do you believe it's important for community members to leave a legacy to the Jewish community?
Well, again, I'm going to speak solipsistically. Okay, solipsistically is that, as I mentioned before, it is a paramount Israeli strategic interest to have a strong American Jewish community. And this community is unique in America. There are very few communities like it because it has leadership. You can go to many Jewish communities in the United States, and you're hard-pressed to find who are the leaders. And that's not the case here. There's always been strong leadership here, and strong infrastructure and strong institutions. And that to me is absolutely crucial. So that's the selfish part of this. The selfish part is that. But I also have nephews. My sister lives not far from here. And so just in terms of my family and the people we know, the people we love, having the strong Jewish community vital, connected, educated, passionate is a value in and of itself, not just solipsistically. And therefore, anything you do for this community for the next 100 years, here I'm writing in this book about Israel's next 100 years and not taking it for granted, you can't take it for granted here either. Whether the challenges are assimilation, people moving to Miami, those challenges have to be met. And they can be met by addressing through activism and commitment today.
So, Ambassador, you are a living example of a great part of the bridge that we've been talking about between Israel and diaspora. So we're very proud of the fact that you're a native son, and we thank you very much for coming here. And of course, you bring out the people because they want to hear from you. Mm-hmm. And I just want to ask you as the last question, what do you hope your own personal legacy will be?
Well, it's not done yet. Hold it. I'm not that old. You ask that to Henry Kissinger. Just turned 100. I'm just starting. No, I think that my entire life, and then, I hope I'm not being too self-aggrandizing or sentimental, my whole life has been about service. Whether it was as a volunteer on a kibbutz, a lone soldier in the paratroopers, as an emissary to the Zionist underground in the Soviet Union, which is a whole episode. Of course, in Washington and Knesset, serving on various Jewish agency committees. I was the Israel representative to the Birthright Board. I serve on your Institute for Shlichim. We monitor thousands of Shlichim around the world, emissaries around the world, with my good friend Natan Sharansky and Bougie. We do this. It's all about service. I love being a father. I love being a partner. I love being a grandfather. All of that I love, but some of the greatest fulfillment I've had in life has been through serving Israel and the Jewish people. And I ardently hope to continue that service in any way that I can. I interview pretty much daily on the Israeli press. I interviewed 3 times today. And I'm always asked, well, are you going to run for office? Are you going to run for office? And I always say, if called to the flag, I'll always report to duty. I will. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Very much appreciated.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you very much. Come again. This is for you guys. It was great. Okay. What a pleasure. Okay, great. Wonderful. This is, as you see, this is in English. It's only 60 pages.
Thank you, Ambassador Oren.
60 pages.
Thank you, Mark. It was an honor and a pleasure to hear your conversation this evening. What a special opportunity for our community. Thank you for joining us. We are Julie and Matt Kaplan, co-chairs for this evening's event, together with David, Marion, Larry, and Gail. We hope you were inspired this evening, connected with new and old friends, and learned something new. Please help yourself to a cookie and coffee to enjoy on the ride home. Thanks for coming. Good night.